Hi, this is Brian with ActiveMelody.com. In this week's guitar lesson, we're going to break down this rock blues that's played in the key of A, and I'm going to explain how to play everything that I played in the intro note for note. And what's really cool about this is that it's a solo guitar composition, which means you don't need a jam track, you don't need another musician. All you need is a guitar and a pick, and it works on its own. And this is something that you can do on electric or acoustic guitar, although I will say it's a lot easier to play and it even sounds better on electric guitar. It's really designed for electric, but if all you have is an acoustic and you want to learn it, you can definitely follow along. I've got this lesson split into two parts, so we're going to break down everything that I played in the intro, all of it note for note, and I'm going to explain all the why behind it so that you understand how it works, and you'll be able to improvise and do this on your own, and you'll even be able to extend this if you want to. So in this lesson we're going to take a look at the first half. If you'd like to watch the second half, as well as download the tablature and have access to the interactive tab viewer, which is really cool. You'll get all of that at ActiveMelody.com. Just look for EP162. That's a lesson number for this lesson. So let's go ahead and get started with part one. Alright, so I've got the volume turned down on this so that you can hear the notes more clearly as I go through it, but I did want to just mention what my tone setup was. I'm playing through one pedal. I'm using a Tube Screamer TS808 pedal, which is made by Ibanez. And I had the overdrive and the level set at about 7 on the dial, and the tone dial was set at about 5, somewhere between 5 and 6. And then I went out of that pedal into the PV Classic 20 head that I'm using, and I have the reverb set at about 4. So that's really all I'm using for tone. Now you don't have to have that. You can play this clean channel. You can go straight into your amp and use whatever overdrive you have, but that's what I use. So this song, this composition, I guess, is in the key of A, and so there's going to be really it's just a 1-4-5 chord progression, meaning you have the A chord is the 1, the D chord is the 4, and the E chord is the 5. And the first thing that I played was a little thing to sort of get us right into this thing, so that you could really, my goal is to hit the A note, the open A note, so that it provides the boundary, the context for the rest of the stuff, and so that'll make a little more sense. And a lot of what we're going to be covering in this is going to be timing. There's a lot of, this is kind of a weird timing thing. I wanted to do something that was just to kind of get us out of the old right on the beat stuff. Sometimes it's fun to kind of challenge yourself and push yourself and try some things with some different timing. So we're going to be playing a lot of these notes on the and, which is the note that happens between the beats. So 1 and 2 and. I'll get to that in a minute. Let's get to this little setup. So what I'm doing, I'm playing in. The first thing that I do is I think about where's home base when we're starting something like this. So I'm thinking the song's in A. So wherever I would make my major bar chord, that bar becomes the root fret, and that's home base. So if we're making an E bar, I'm using the E chord shape. I'm just playing it up here. So playing, and when you do that, that becomes an A. And so I know a lot of you know this already, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start in pattern 2 of the minor pentatonic scale for the key of A, and then we're going to shift down to pattern 1. If you don't know what I mean when I talk about patterns in the minor pentatonic scale, I have a blues lead course that explains what the patterns are. There's 5 different patterns, and I go through the different patterns and give you practice licks and all of that stuff. But that's where we're starting, is in pattern 1, or in pattern 2 rather. So pattern 1 is right there. Pattern 2, remember our root fret, how everything plays off of that. Pattern 2 is right up here. So this first thing, after we do this, we come up to pattern 2. Let's go, now that we've got that out of the way, and at least you understand the boundaries, let me get to the specific notes. So we're starting here on the 5th fret, 5th string, and we're going to slide up to the 7th fret, 5th string. And this is in pattern 1 of the minor pentatonic scale. And then we're going to go 5th fret, 4th string, 7th fret, 4th string. So, and then this is an A note. Now we're going to play a low A. So now we've just set this thing up. And that's kind of about the tempo that I played it. It's kind of 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So then when we come up and play this lick, it's going to make sense to you now that you understand, okay, it's just 2 notes out of pattern 2. So that's why it's important to set this up, is explain that we're going to do pattern 2 to pattern 1. So pattern 2 has 5 little notes. That's how I think of it anyway. Those are the most used. And so if I were to look at these 2 notes, they're just right out of pattern 2. And what I'm playing specifically, it's the 10th fret 2nd string, and then the 9th fret 3rd string. It's those 2. And when I hit it, I'm playing some vibrato. Actually, I'm using my index finger and middle finger to do that. So after we set it up, I come up and play that. Now, here's another important thing. I'm plucking this. I'm using my middle finger and ring finger on my right hand to get that. It gives me more control. If you're picking it, you're hitting them not quite at the same time, because the pick's going to always start with one and rake to the other, even if you're picking it quickly. I just think you get that real precise control. So try and do that. And that's called hybrid picking, when you use your pick and then you use your fingers. And it's really not that hard to do. And it's something you should definitely get used to doing. This would be a good way to kind of, if you've never done it or never wanted to try it, this would be a good way to start it, because it's you're not going back and forth between your pick and your fingers. You're just plucking here. Okay, now the next thing, let's look at that. Well, where is that coming from? Well, we're still in pattern 2. These 2 notes, remember? These are the 5. So I'm just borrowing these 2. That's on the 8th fret, strings 1 and 2. And then I go back to where I started. Hear how the pluck, by using these 2 fingers, it gives you real precise little, pulses of notes, as opposed to, you can hear the difference. All right, so now that we've got a few of the first notes out of the way, let's talk about timing and how you would count something like this. This is going to be probably the hardest part for some of you, because there's no jam track, there's no musician to bounce anything off. So this is why it's important to practice something like this with a metronome. But the way we're going to count it is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So you can see what happened there is this. That note happened after the 4. So you say 4 and. As soon as I said and after 4, 4 and then that A happens right on the 1 of the next beat, of the next measure. So let me do that again, just so you get that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Let's keep going with it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. You can see why I'm using the ands now in between the beats, because a lot of these notes, 3 and 4. It's happening 3 and 4. So just remember that when you're counting it out. Just try and, you can rewatch this part of the video, but 3 and 4. Now after I said 4, I did this little thing here, and we'll get to that little flourish in just a second. But I wanted you to understand the timing piece and how to count that, and that's probably the hardest part, is just getting it started. Once it gets into that part, it's a little more intuitive, but in the beginning it may be tough. So practice that. Okay, let's get into these specific notes. So we've already got that note. We've got the little bar here on the 8th fret, strings 1 and 2. We're back to the 9th fret, between the 9th fret and the 10th fret, strings 3 and 2. And then watch this. I went. Now that's a cool. I got that from Billy Gibbons' ZZ Top. And what I'm doing, I'm plucking again with my middle finger and ring finger. And the first thing we're going to do is I do a pull. I think that's probably the easiest way to do that. But I bar the first 3 strings here on the 7th fret, but we're only playing strings 2 and 3. And I'm going to pull. You can see what I just did there. I pulled 2 strings. It's the 2nd string and the 3rd string. And as soon as I pulled them, I put my fingers back down on the guitar here to mute it. Now if you picked it, you'd put your whole hand down, but it's easier because you can just push these on and off. It gives you a little more control. It's more tight, I guess. Now after you do that, you play this. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And what I'm doing is I'm doing playing strings 2 and 3 on the 7th fret, doing a pull off. Now I'm pulling off 2 strings, but it's no more difficult than pulling off 1. I'm just flicking both of these, kind of pulling down as I pull off, so that this bar here, and I've got my index finger barred on the 5th fret, first 3 strings, I'm playing strings 2 and 3. Then I do a hammer on to the 7th fret 4th string, and then I do another pluck here on strings 2 and 3, which is behind the bar here on the 7th fret. So as you see, all 4 of those notes happen pretty quickly. But that's a kind of lick. Once you get that down, you would use that a lot in other things. So that's what it sounds like all together. Hear the precise little bursts. It's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay? Now let's move on. The next part goes. So it starts here on the 5th fret, strings 2 and 3. We're going to do, I'm pulling it slightly sharp just to give a little bit of twang. I'm plucking that again, ring finger, middle finger of the right hand. Then I come down, now we're going to play some single strings. This is the 7th fret, 4th string. And then I take my middle finger and do the 7th fret, 5th string. So you got. And then I come, you can see how all this is in pattern 1. Always pay attention to where you're at. Don't just memorize the notes. Visualize pattern 1 and how these notes fit into that. And then that's going to help you make sense. Then you can translate this to any key. There it is in G, for example. Okay, so after we do the 7th fret, 4th string, and then 5th string, I'm back to the 5th fret, 4th string, 7th fret, 4th string, and then I do this vibrato here on the 5th fret, 3rd string. And then we're going to just repeat. 7th fret, 7th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret. And that's all in the tablature for those of you that are premium members, so that'll make that easier. You may want to use that on-screen tab viewer to slow that down and just loop that section. Something like that. Okay, let's back it up and play everything up to that point. Okay, you can start to feel the groove. You can hear me tapping my foot. This is the kind of thing, if you were to play this with another musician, you would have somebody going, like a bass player going, just on the beat. That would give you the substance that you need, I think, it would at least help it. Now right here, I'm going to hit the 1 string again. I'm sorry, not the 1 string, the 5th string, the open 5th string, the A. And then we're going to repeat. Okay, so it just repeats. So the only thing you have to do to remember to get back is just hit that open A string, open 5th string. Okay, and then we go to the D part. Before I do that, let me just back up. I'm going to do this slowly so you have one more version of this that you can watch. Here we go. We have 1, 2, 3. Now we go to the D part, and all I'm playing is a D7th chord. I'm playing it right here. The easiest way to think of this chord, if you're not familiar, is to think of it playing a C chord down in first position, which I know you know how to play. And then if you add your pinky here on a C, that would be the 3rd fret, 3rd string. That would be a C7. Well, it's that same chord. We just moved it up to here so that our index finger's on the 3rd fret. Make sure you know how to make that chord shape. You'll use that all the time in blues. It's just very common. It's nice because you can slide it around and easy to grab with your hand. So this is a D7, and we're going to play. I just hit it twice. And then I came up and went. It's kind of a call and response, I guess. That's a call. And I came up here. And what I did was I used my pinky. Some of you may use your ring finger, but it's the 7th fret, 2nd string. Index fingers on the 5th fret, 3rd string. And just played those 2 strings. Strings 2 and 3. And I went down, up, up. So we have, and then I went, so that's just to get us back to that D7th, and I'm playing the middle 2 strings open, so open 3, open 4. I did an upstroke, it happens very quickly. And then instead of making the D7 chord here, I made it down one, which would actually be a C sharp 7, so that I can slide into it. So it goes like this. You can see there's the open strings, open 3 and 4. There's that C sharp. Now we're going to do the open strings 3 and 4 again. And then we're going to play back to the D7. That happens quickly. It's like kind of screwed that up, but you get the gist of it. Okay, and then the second time through, I played this little series of triplets that goes, that gets us back to the A. And that's something I got from Eric Clapton. That's a Cream era Eric Clapton lick. He did a lot of stuff in this area. A lot of this actually sounds kind of like Cream. It's very kind of influenced by him. I'm a huge Clapton fan, especially of that era. So we have. Now, what I do when I do this lick is I go to pattern 1. So this is kind of something I've noticed that Eric Clapton does a lot, and I think it's pretty clever. A lot of people, a lot of people go to the same places when they go to pattern 1. That kind of stuff. But Clapton will oftentimes start on that note, which is just not the norm, I guess. And I think it's cool, especially. It just sounds kind of unexpected, I guess, to me. Every time I hear that a lick that starts on that note out of the pattern 1 of the minor pentatonic scale, it's always an unexpected twist, and I love it. So I worked that in. So what we're doing is that's the 8th fret 2nd string, and then I come down to the 5th fret 2nd string, then the 7th fret 3rd string, 5th fret 2nd string. So, and it's just down, up with the right hand. Now the timing of this is triplet, 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 triplet. So you have these triplets, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's like a little mini waltz within a 4/4 time. So we have. Okay, now back to the 5th fret 2nd string, and then we do a bend on the 7th fret 3rd string, and then a release and play the 7th fret without the bend. So 5th fret 3rd string, 7th fret 4th string. Let's back up and play that. 5th fret 4th string, and then as soon as I play the 7th fret 5th string, I slide it immediately down to the 5th fret 5th string. 3rd fret 5th string, open A. So the goal of a lick like this is to, and I have this in mind as I even start the thing, is to get it down to the open A string somehow. And that rationale or thought process happens very quickly. And that's something you'll get better at as you play, but you instinctively know the song is going there. And so you do whatever you can do to try and get yourself down to that open A string. And that's what it sounds like. And you can play that. If that's too fast, just slow the whole thing down. Start this thing at a slower tempo. And then we're back to, once you have that open A ringing out, we're right back to where we were. Which I don't need to cover again. Okay, so then the song goes down to the E, and all I did was I played an E chord down in first position, and I put my pinky down on the 3rd fret 2nd string. That creates an E7 chord. So it started with, so I made the chord, then I started with a low 6th string, and then do an upstroke on strings 1 and 2. And then I put my pinky down on the 3rd fret 2nd string. That's a downstroke. And do another upstroke on the 1 string. Just like that. And then I came up and went. Pretty cool. And what I'm doing up here, I'm thinking, okay, you got an E chord here, right? Well, I want to do something a little different. Well, there's an E chord, that same chord, everything, if I played it an octave higher, it would look like this, right? So the 12th fret resets everything. So now we're back to an E chord again. And if I went and played that, that's just the 2 notes out of the chord. These 2 notes, right? We're playing them up here now. To make it the 7th chord, just like we did here, with that note, that's what I did. I just played it up here on the 13th, 15th fret. So, and the way that I played the notes would be, basically I slid in, I had my index finger on the 12th fret 2nd string, my middle finger's on the 13th fret 3rd string, and I played string 3, 2, 3, pinky goes down the 15th fret 2nd string, 3, 2, 3, 2. Take the pinky off, 2, 3. So it sounds like this. And then the next thing that happens is the D part, and I thought, well, okay, if you have an E here, you can just slide it down 2, and you got a D, right? So all the same principles apply. You can put your pinky down, and you got a D7. So I just did the same lick, basically, but just slid it down 2 frets. So by playing these 2 notes, it's just the 2 notes out of the D chord. So that's important for you to remember, because if you don't want to go, you want to do play some other lick or whatever, you can do that. I want you to understand the boundaries so that this all makes sense. So I plucked that part, middle finger and ring finger. And what I'm doing is my index finger is sliding into the 10th fret 2nd string, middle finger is 11th fret 3rd string. Pinky goes up to the 13th fret 2nd string. Same little lick as before. And then we're back to, actually, I slid it down and hit the open A string so that I can get back to where we started. And that's really all there is to this first half. So with the E, from the E, back to the intro lick. All right, so let me go ahead and play through this whole thing one more time, just so you have a slow version of it. You can study it, and then we'll move on to part 2. And obviously, if you're a premium member, you'll have access to that. You'll also have access to all the tab, which makes it even easier to follow along. Okay, here we go.